Thank you so much for watching this lesson. So this is lesson 14.1, scatter plots and association. And so the essential question is, how can you construct and interpret the scatter plots? So you got to be able to construct and then interpret the scatter plots, okay? Let's watch the video first.
The size of some dinosaurs is amazing. Tyrannosaurus rex can grow to more than 11,000 pounds. That's more than 4 times as much as my car. But how do scientists know how much they weighed? After all, we just have fossilized bones, and usually not many of them. That's where math comes in. Scientists can use a technique called scatter plots. A scatter plot's a graph that shows the relationship between 2 variables. So if we use information on the sizes of bones, let's say leg bones, and weights of animals that are alive today, we can make a scatter plot. It looks like this. Then, we draw a line that best fits the data. So if we have the leg bone from a dinosaur, we can see where it fits along the line. And there we have it, 11,000 pounds, one of the biggest predators ever to live on land. And that's another reason math matters.
Okay, and now you've seen a sample of a scatter plot, which is just a graph with plots all over, okay?
The final question on a math test reads, how many hours did you spend studying for this test? The teacher records the number of hours each student studied and the grade the student received on the test. A set of bivariate data involves 2 variables, such as hours spent studying and test grades. Bivariate data are used to explore the relationship between the 2 variables. Based on the data in the table, what prediction would you make about the relationship between the number of hours each student spent studying and the grade the student received on the test?
So what do you think in general? There is no relationship between the number of study hours and the test grade? Or as the number of study hours increases, the test grade increases, or a greater number of study hours is likely to be associated with higher test scores? What do you think? I think maybe C, as the number of study.
Great! Although there isn't a direct relationship between hours of study and test grade, there does seem to be some association between the 2 factors. You can graph bivariate data on a scatter plot. A scatter plot is a graph with points plotted to show the relationship between 2 sets of data. In this scatter plot, the hours of studying are the independent variable, and the test grade is the dependent variable. The first point, 0 hours studying and a grade of 75, has already been plotted. Now, plot a point representing a study time of 1 hour and a test grade of 85. Then plot a point representing a study time of 2 hours and a test grade of 90.
So 1 and 85 will be right between the 80 and the 90, 1 and 85, and 2 and 90, 2 and 90, right there.
Excellent! You've correctly plotted the points at 1 hour and a test grade of 85 and 2 hours with a test grade of 90. Now, identify which scatter plot correctly represents the data in the table.
So one of the points that stands out for me is this one, which is 1.5 and 70, and see if I have a 1.5 and 70. See, I don't have 1.5 and 70, so that means it must be B, okay?
That's right. Plot B correctly represents the data in the table. What trend do you see in the data?
So in general, you can see that as the number of hours increase, the number of tests also increases, okay?
Excellent! There is a trend showing that longer study hours tend to improve test grades, but it is not always the case.
There are some of us that study and might not get a good grade either way because we freaked out.
A scientist gathers information about the eruptions of Old Faithful, a geyser in Yellowstone National Park. She uses the data to create a scatter plot. The data show the length of time between eruptions, interval, and how long the eruption lasts, duration. A cluster is a set of closely grouped data. Data may cluster around a point or along a line. What other area of the scatter plot represents a cluster?
So this represents a cluster, but there's another one right here that also represents a cluster.
Great. This cluster is centered around a point. An outlier is a data point that is very different from the rest of the data in the set. Identify an outlier on the scatter plot.
So this is considered the outlier, okay, right there, that one. Is it the 38 and 4 point something? Yep.
Correct. The outlier is separate from the other two clusters of data.
This is an outlier, okay? This is called a cluster. There's two clusters and one outlier.
Association describes how sets of data are related. Data points that lie basically along a line, as in this scatter plot, exhibit a linear association. A positive association means that both data sets increase together. For example, young children tend to get taller as they get older. A negative association means that as one data set increases, the other decreases. For example, this scatter plot suggests that as average speed increases, the time needed to reach the destination decreases. No association means that there is no relationship between the two data sets. For example, there is no association between shoe size and test scores as shown in this scatter plot. Match the labels describing types of association to the scatter plots.
So once again, this is over, they're all over, so that means there's no association. This one is increasing, it goes up, so that one has a positive association. This one goes down from left to right, so that one has a negative association, okay?
That's right. You correctly identified the types of association shown in the scatter plots. Susan asked 20 people if they would buy a new product she developed at each of several prices. The scatter plot shows how many of the 20 said yes at a given price. Describe the association between price and the number of buyers. Which statement best describes the association shown in the scatter plot?
So what do you think? As the price increases, the number of buyers decrease, okay? So as the price increases, the number of buyers decreases. So there's a negative association, that points are going down negative. Yep. B.
Good job! As the price increases, the number of people willing to buy the product decreases, which is a negative association. Which statement best describes the association shown in the scatter plot?
So they do kind of like in a curve. So the data do not lie along a line. The association is nonlinear. Yeah, it's nonlinear. It's more like a curve, okay? So I'm going to go with this. Lie along. The data points they do lie along. The association is nonlinear. I'm going to say B. Because I was correct the first one.
That's not correct. The data points do not lie along a line. The association is nonlinear.
Now you know that I make lots of mistakes.
Now let's practice.
You always know that I make lots of mistakes, and it's okay. We're learning. So number 1, explain how you make a scatter plot from a set of bivariate. Let the number of x represents the one variable. The number on the y-axis represent another variable, and then plot the points x, y for each pair of numbers in the bivariate data. Let me check. Correct. Number 2, describe what you might see in a table of bivariate data that would lead you to conclude that the scatter plot of the data would show a cluster, or you see a bunch of points. A large number of data points x, y's around close to one another. Okay, so you see a whole bunch. That's a cluster. Okay, and well done. I submitted and I am done.
Practice with the personal math trainer.